Yeah, oh shit. Yeah, I wanted to get on here real quick and share this with you. I had to share this with you um live. Yeah, I did because this will show you exactly what I'm trying to give you to a T on why this is exactly why this is, and I need to show you exactly um what it says here, why they fear black Americans more than anyone else. And I said that in my last video. It was more like, you know, separating us not just by color is what I said. I mean, the way I said it was, they put white against black and threw everything in the middle. Excuse me. They put white against black with everything in the middle. However, when I spoke about the Captain Kirk situation, I I was speaking in like they want to watch us react. They want to watch what we do next and feed off of that. In fact, I find that to be very important in their next few steps of what they got going on. And if one sees or understands it that way, then you'll see the importance to the stories that I am trying to tell. However, I realized earlier my audio wasn't like it was supposed to be. So I had to reset because that's a very important story to tell. That's a very demanding, important story to tell. But like I say all the time, I can't make you understand these things. So I'm in constant search to get people. I'm in constant search to get people to see this. Excuse me, I'm a little distracted. Yeah. What I'm trying to get to, what I'm trying to say, I apologize. What I'm trying to get to and what I'm trying to say, or what I'm trying to allude to, is I don't want to convince you of anything. I want to show you this information, and I want you to see the importance behind this information. However, the stories that I am telling them from a point of view on what this says, why they fear black Americans more than anyone else. Now, I already knew when I watched this video that it was only going to go so far. However, I want to tell the story from an Indian point of view. But when I come across this video, I felt the need to share it live because this is exactly why I am trying to tell that story. Because there is something there, and I see what exactly it is they are keeping us from. And you got to understand, this is important to the point where they'll burn the world down to keep you from understanding it. And that may sound like a joke to you. That may sound like something off the wall to you. I am fucking not live on Facebook. Are you serious? It's doing it again? They are playing with my video feed. It was just up there like it was cool. Then again, I'm lying. I just did all that. Okay, forgive me, YouTube. Let's log in my Facebook in now. Yeah. Okay, we together now. I apologize for that. I apologize for that. Let's start over. Please, let's start over. Um, no, I need to exit out of that. I don't need you in my business. However, let's go back. Let's start over. For those that just, you know, well, I can go and edit that out. But yeah, there's a certain story that I'm trying to tell, And the story that I'm trying to tell fits this narrative to a T. So YouTube allows reactions to videos. And I come across this video. I sent it to a few people. If I sent it to you, please don't watch it. Watch it here. I apologize. But I wanted to give this video context live. I wanted to give it some, you know what I'm saying, understanding while live. So the title says, "Why They Fear Black Americans More Than Anyone Else." And my last few videos, especially the one when I did on Captain Kirk just recently, I said that they were looking to watch black people react in a way we won't react. But they're pushing your buttons for a reason. And in this video, man, when I saw this video, I just found it so ironic. The information that you seek tends to seek you. But this information ain't meant for everybody to understand off the rip. So what I am doing, what I am attempting to do, is to bring you this information the best way I can. I can't say the best way I know how, because this is a new field for me. This is some new energy for me. This is a whole new world of space. However, I have equipment set up for this, and I'm still learning it. This is not some easy equipment when you're not computer savvy. I just had to throw that out there. But the Indian and the stone, or, you know, the story I tried to tell earlier, I don't know what happened and why it didn't work out. My audio was off, you know what I mean, for whatever reason. I set it up, it was cool, but then the minute everything started playing, it went awry. Now, I can give you theory, but, you know, that would be something else. However, I do want you to take this absolutely serious, because the way this lady breaks this information down, you cannot disagree. And I guarantee you, if you watch 4 to 5 minutes of this video, if you watch 2 to 5 minutes of this video, you will not put this video down, just because of the information and the proof, pretty much, that she can give you. Now, you don't have to take no one's word for it. You know, take the video, come back to it when you can pause the video in certain sections and certain points to where you can look the information up. Believe me, this information is truth. This information is real. And if I give you this information, believe I've been searching it, or I searched it up right then and there to figure out if there's truth behind it. I do not just want to give you something just fresh off my tongue. But like I said, when you see this video, and please, by all means, if you want here, go subscribe to Afro Wire. Please, that is the lady's channel, I do believe. So if you look up the title, it'll give it to you. Why They Fear Black Americans More Than Anyone Else is the title. It'll give it to you. There's a black lady on there who you'll see very shortly. I gotta quit talking over this video and let you watch it. Then I'll give you my commentary at the end. So let's get into it. And I guarantee you, like I said, if you give this video 2 to 5 minutes, you will not put it down. I guarantee you. Let's get into it. Oh shit.
I've been studying surveillance data for months, and there's one statistic that haunts me. Black Americans are 14% of the population, but represent over 40% of FBI domestic surveillance targets. What are they so terrified of that they've dedicated a century of resources to watching us? Listen, y'all, this is the question that keeps me up at night, because when you really dig into the numbers, when you follow the money, when you trace the timeline, it becomes crystal clear that this system has been absolutely terrified of Black Americans since day one. And I'm not talking about some paranoid conspiracy theory nonsense. I'm talking about documented, declassified, government-admitted surveillance programs that have been running for over 100 years. Let me break this down for you, because the math alone should make every American furious. We're 14% of the population. population. 14%. That's like one person out of every 7. But somehow, someway, we require more surveillance resources than groups that outnumber us 4-1. The budget allocations, the technology, the manpower dedicated to monitoring black communities rivals what some countries spend on their entire defense systems. You want to tell me that makes sense? Here's what really gets me fired up. They've been doing this so long, they've got it down to a science. It started with Marcus Garvey in the 1920s. This man was preaching black pride, economic independence, self-determination, basic human dignity, and the government said, oh, hell no, and created an entire apparatus just to take him down. J. Edgar Hoover, that racist dinosaur, literally built his career on the fear of black organizing. He said Garvey was the most prominent and dangerous black leader in America. Dangerous for what? For telling black people they deserved better? But let's go even further back, because this pattern starts before Garvey. During Reconstruction, they had the Freedmen's Bureau monitoring every move black folks made. They were tracking who was learning to read, who was buying land, who was starting businesses, who was voting. The moment black people started exercising basic human rights after slavery, here comes the surveillance state. They documented every church meeting, every political gathering, every attempt at economic development. This wasn't law enforcement. This was systematic intimidation designed to keep people from organizing. Then you had the Red Summer of 1919, and guess what?
Hold on. I just realized something. What she just said there, let's go back just a few seconds, because I kind of was late on the draw, so I need you to hear that again.
He said Garvey was the most prominent and dangerous black leader in America. Dangerous for what? For telling black people they deserved better? But let's go even further back, because this pattern starts before Garvey. During Reconstruction, they had the Freedmen's Bureau monitoring every move black folks made. They were tracking who was learning to read, who was buying land, who was starting businesses, who was voting. The moment black people started exercising basic human rights after slavery, here comes the surveillance state. They documented every church meeting, every political gathering, every attempt at economic development. This wasn't...
Hold on. I had to stop it there, because if you are aware of Malcolm X, Malcolm X spoke of Martin Luther King, which he referred to a group of them. Not just Martin Luther King, but I had to throw his name out there because I forget the rest of them. But they were called the Big Six. Malcolm X spoke of them. He said they all sat down with the FBI and, collaborated on how to take the church further, before he actually started with the March on Washington. In fact, that was one of the reasons why he was able to do the March on Washington, because they had a meeting with the government to further their agenda. But of course, if the government pays or allows you to do something, they dictate how you do it. And I tell you dudes, I tell people in my community, I hate to say this because there's some beautiful people involved with these programs, but these youth program movements, all they doing is stacking your data and using it against you. That's why I had to stop it there. I didn't really want to stop this video, but I find that I may have to at certain points to give you quick tidbits like that. Now, I want you to take that to the bank, because I see what you see, and it looks like this video could be AI. So with me seeing what you see, I had to give that text because there's truth there. Go look it up. The Big Six. Go look it up. So if you're going to sit there and say that's AI, then please shut your mouth, because you in the way. You a hater. Or you're going to be the reason why we stay stuck as a culture, as people killing each other, as people destroying each other, because that is the plan. Anytime we have ever gotten to a place where we get ahead, they destroy it. If you think I'm lying, then it was Tulsa, Oklahoma, or whatever, however you said it. I'm a little excited. But, I hope you understand exactly what I'm saying here. Let's continue.
Law enforcement. This was systematic intimidation designed to keep people from organizing. Then you had the Red Summer of 1919.
Can't make it up.
And guess what? The government wasn't investigating the white mobs that were lynching black folks.
They never do.
They were investigating the black communities that were fighting back. They created files on every black veteran who came back from World War I and dared to demand the rights they fought for overseas. These were men who had just served their country, and the thanks they got was surveillance, harassment, and violence. But that was just the warm-up act. Then we get to COINTELPRO, and honey, this is where it gets real dark, real fast. From 1956 to 1971 officially, but we all know it never really stopped. The FBI didn't just monitor black leaders, they actively worked to expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, or otherwise neutralize black organizations and leaders. Those are their words, not mine. They didn't want to just watch us. They wanted to destroy us from the inside out. The psychological warfare aspect of this program was diabolical. They weren't just collecting information, they were creating chaos. They'd send fake letters between civil rights leaders to create beef. They'd plant informants to suggest violent actions that would discredit peaceful movements.
Antifa.
They'd spread rumors, create division, turn organizations against each other. They had agents provocateurs encouraging illegal activities so they could justify arrests and prosecutions. This is the level of resources, creativity, and sustained effort they put into undermining black progress. Let me tell you about some of the specific tactics they used because people need to understand how deep this went. They would forge documents to make it look like civil rights leaders were FBI informants, destroying their credibility within the movement. They'd create fake communist literature and plant it in people's homes during raids. They'd use local police to harass activists' families, getting their children followed to school, their spouses fired from jobs, their credit destroyed, their utilities cut off. And the targets? Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., the Black Panthers, Fred Hampton, Angela Davis, Stokely Carmichael, H. Rap Brown. Every single person who dared to tell black folks we deserve the same rights, the same opportunities, the same respect as everyone else. They killed Fred Hampton in his sleep at 21 years old. 21. What was he doing that was...
Why do you vote? That's what you're voting for. Why do you vote? That upsets me. I don't understand how we sit here in America question how black on black crime affects us, but we don't get upset behind the root of it all. We're not even trying to understand the root of it all. That's what that is. That's the root of it all. That's the animal you seek. But you run and give them the information they need to further their agenda. You don't want to hear the truth. I get it. If I steal your truth, you are not who you think you are. But that is the fucking point. You have never been who you thought you are. That is the whole entire point. They control any choice you think you have. That's why you sitting around right now mad at Trump, not realizing you never had a choice. You never had a choice between Obama. You never had a choice between Biden. So you never had a choice with Trump. That's what I've been showing you. The last video I made, War, the Willie Lynch, excuse me if I'm screaming too loud, but War, the Willie Lynch letter explained. That's what that is. That's a war against you and I. And every time you vote, guess what you do? I ain't supposed to be saying these things. So understand why I'm so hyper. Because I'm risking something here. Because as she says, anyone that ever thinks like this, come on, man. Come on, man. Come on.
So threatening, feeding kids breakfast and teaching self-defense. But somehow that required a coordinated assassination involving the FBI, Chicago police, and the Cook County State Attorney's Office.
Can't make it up!
The Black Panthers alone had over 700 documented COINTELPRO operations against them. 700. For a group that was primarily focused on community service programs,
peace and love,
free breakfast for children, free medical clinics, education programs,
teaching you don't need them.
But they also taught black pride and self-defense. And that combination was apparently so terrifying that it required the full force of the federal government to destroy it. Now let's jump to the modern era because people love to pretend this all ended with the civil rights movement. Social media surveillance, predictive policing algorithms, facial recognition technology that's been proven to have higher error rates.
They just killed that boy in Aliquippa. 17-year-old boy running down the steps away from the police that was beating on him. He turned around and shot him. You know what you didn't hear? They arrested that cop. But they're not going to. Why? Because that's the very point and purpose of having the police involved in all this. to keep you dysfunctional, but also to rule over you. This is why they get upset when you don't do as they say. You don't think that's what they teaching in them academies? You think that they don't sit there in large groups in these academies and sit there and tell each other, especially the white people, tell each other how they can't wait to get out there in the streets and treat black people? You think that ain't how they think? You think for 1 second that this is buffoonery? You're a fool. If you think that this is not truth, you are a fool. I'm not one to be anybody's slave. I'd rather die standing up than live on my knees. I suffered too long in my life to continue to suffer by the hands of someone else. What do you do with all this information, man? Do you continue to live the same way?
For black faces, but somehow that doesn't stop them from using it. They're monitoring hashtags, tracking activists, building databases of people who dare to say Black Lives Matter online. The technology has evolved, but the mission remains the same. Monitor, disrupt, control. They've got algorithms now that can predict where black people
They got you thinking racism still don't exist.
will be, what we'll do, who we'll associate with. They're using our own data against us, and most people don't even realize it's happening because they've gotten so sophisticated with it. Let's talk about how this surveillance state operates in 2025. They're using cell tower simulators, also known as stingrays, to vacuum up phone data in black neighborhoods. They're monitoring social media for keywords related to police brutality, racial justice, economic inequality. They've got fusion centers in
Tell me where you got a monkey in the fight. Tell me. All that hard-earned money, all that hard-earned time, all that hard-earned attention that you give these people, what did they give you back? You know what they gave you back? Asian hate crime bills.
every major city specifically designed to track domestic threats. And guess who always ends up on those lists? The Department of Homeland Security has been caught multiple times surveilling Black Lives Matter activists, tracking their movements, monitoring their communications, building detailed profiles of their associations. They're using...
In other words, anything black people do that could be of any success, they found ways to tear it down. White people, I want you to understand that if you are watching this, please do not take me out of text. I am not prejudiced, racist, or hateful nowhere. However, I need for you to understand that the way it affects me affects you later in life. That's your German poem, you know, where they came and got McDonald's and I did not speak. Then they came and got Wendy's and I still did not speak. Then they, I mean, come on, I'm using fast food chains just to throw the names off, but you get it because it's not about just, it's not about religions and races for real to them. It's about absolute power. So at the end of the day, they're going to make a group lesser than the other. However, there's one reason they keep using the black race more than any. And if you do your history, throughout history, like I said earlier, if you caught any of the little live that I had to take down, I spoke of Japan, how the Asian community, they hate black people, but are damn near as black as you and me. I mean, not my color black, maybe my friend Jamaica. I mean, I just gotta be honest. But there's a reason to that, because they were once as black as me. They got Mexicans thinking that they not black, but they still got people as black as me. They got Spanish people, but what is it? La Morenga or whatever the Queen's name song they sing. She was as black as me, but they got these people thinking that they're not black. They've convinced the entire world, especially you Indians from India. Oh my dear, y'all are so confused. I look at y'all every day and realize how we resemble just in pigment alone. But y'all sit with these white folks and talk bad about us. Meanwhile, they don't like you either. They don't like no one that don't further their agenda. It ain't about speaking truth to power. It's about speaking truth to self. If you speak it to yourself, you know how to live it. If you can't speak truth to yourself, then you live in a lie within your own tongue. Period, point blank. And yes, I'm speaking loudly. Yes, I'm excited. Yes, because I have emotional ties to what they have done to me. And I get it. You're gonna sit there and say you wasn't born this day and that day. Dude, she's showing you, she's telling you, it's telling you. What they did 100 years ago, they're still applying to this date. So when you sit on these apparatuses and say that racism doesn't exist, no, it evolved, you fool. All you did was high five your oppressor, smoke a blunt, smoke a cigarette, sip some liquor, and moved on. That's where they got you delusional. Why? Because it wasn't until the educational system in the early 1900s that these indoctrinations became ours.
License plate readers, facial recognition cameras, predictive policing software that's based on historically biased data. They're monitoring music lyrics, social media posts, protest participation. If you've ever shared a post about racial justice, liked a Black Lives Matter tweet, or attended a protest, chances are you're in a database somewhere. And here's the kicker. They're not even hiding it anymore. In 2020, during the George Floyd protests, they openly admitted to using military surveillance techniques on American citizens. They had drones.
They did. Look it up. It's the truth. So if you thinking this is just all AI created, you're a fool. The only thing she did was type this in a computer, just probably not to show her own real face. But if that's her real face, then hey, thank you for adding that to it. Because you can see that this is AI. It says it at the bottom. However, it does not stop it from being truth.
Over cities, they were tracking cell phones, they were using military-grade spying equipment on people exercising their constitutional right to protest.
Them drones they had last year?
Maintaining order. The
You
same
didn't know what was
excuse they've
going
been
on?
using for a century. But here's
They
what
was
really blows my
practicing.
mind. They're spending all this money, all this time, all these resources to monitor people who are asking for basic human rights. Not trying to overthrow the government, not plotting terrorist attacks, not planning invasions. We're asking for equal treatment under the law, economic opportunity, and to stop being killed by police. And somehow that requires a surveillance state? Let me put this in perspective for you. The FBI has admitted to having over 100,000 informants at any given time. If Black Americans are such a small percentage of the population, why do so many of those informants end up in our communities, our organizations, our churches, our schools? Why are they recruiting kids as young as 15 to spy on their own families and friends?
Simple. They can never let you know who you truly are. And I'm going to say that one more time. Actually, I'm going to say it twice. They can never allow you to understand who you truly are. They will not allow you to come to the conclusion of who you truly are. And that's what I am trying to show you. That's what I am going to show you. And I'm going to show it to you down to who God truly is. To the point where no one has ever done that. I guarantee you.
But here's where it gets really interesting, and this is the part that should terrify every American, regardless of color. The techniques they perfected on Black communities, they're rolling them out everywhere now. The surveillance state they built to monitor us is now monitoring everyone. We were the beta test for the police state they want to create for everybody. Every surveillance technique used on Americans today was first tested on Black Americans. Mass data collection started with monitoring civil rights organizations, predictive policing, developed using crime data from over-policed Black neighborhoods, social media monitoring, perfected during the Ferguson protests, facial recognition, trained primarily on Black faces because we were the primary targets. We've been the laboratory for the American surveillance state, and now they're using those same tools on everyone. You want to know what they're really afraid of? They're afraid of what happens when Black Americans fully realize our economic power. We spend over $1.4 trillion annually, trillion with a T. We're the 9th largest economy in the world if you count us as our own country. When we organized boycotts in the 60s, we brought entire cities to their knees economically.
Wait a minute. You know how important that is? Because the American Industrial Revolution, the Great Depression, didn't affect us. We thrived when they didn't. But every time these cities, these towns thrived, what did they do? They bombed them. They went in and killed them in large numbers. So you mean to tell me they won't do that right now? You mean to tell me that they will not? Hold on. You're saying to me, these people won't continue to kill you if you learn to get ahead in a group. That's what I'm asking. I had to calm down and say that. I had to calm down and ask that. I get it. It might be turning some people out. I really don't give a fuck. I'm just going to be blunt. You might not like me. You might not like what I am saying, but you cannot deny truth. Once you learn what tactics are being used against you, you can teach your children to have a dog in the fight. And that is the point. They've beaten you into submission. They have beaten us into submission. You couldn't vote. That's what I was telling you in my last video. When I found out we was voting in the 18 and 1700s, that made everything they ever said, everything they ever wrote in a book to me, a lie. This was why they gave you that slave story that is falling apart today. They didn't even have ships in the 1500s. They had sailboats and things like that. How you bringing mass people across oceans of water in sailboats, along with whatever supplies needed? But you don't have no recollection. You don't have no video, no pictures. You don't have no evidence large ships ever existed. Until the Industrial Revolution. Did you even take notice of that?
Montgomery bus boycott lasted 381 days and nearly bankrupted the bus system. Imagine what we could do with coordinated economic action today. They're afraid of what happens when we stop asking for inclusion in their system and start building our own. Every time Black folks have created economic independence, built our own institutions, developed our own communities, here comes the surveillance, here comes the disruption, here comes the violence. Black Wall Street in Tulsa didn't burn itself down. Rosewood didn't destroy itself. Every time we've tried to build something for ourselves, they've found a way to tear it down. Look at what happened with the civil rights movement's economic strategies. The Poor People's Campaign scared them so much they infiltrated it with dozens of informants. Why? Because it wasn't just about civil rights anymore. It was about economic justice, about challenging the fundamental economic structures that keep people in poverty. That's when they really ramped up the surveillance and disruption. They're afraid of our influence on culture, on politics, on social movements. Black Americans have always been the conscience of this country, and they know it. We've led every major social justice movement, influenced global culture, changed the moral landscape of America repeatedly. Hip-hop culture alone has influenced how the entire world thinks about art, fashion, language, politics. 14% of the population doing all that? Yeah, they should be scared.
There it goes. She just told you what I just said in this video and what I've said the last video. They're waiting for you to react so the rest of the world will react as you do. Because they are influenced by you. They need the next step to be you and I acting a fool. This is how they're going to get us. This is why they built underground bunkers.
But it's not just cultural influence they're worried about. It's political power. Every time black voter turnout increases, every time we organize politically, every time we flex our electoral muscle, here comes the surveillance, here come the voter suppression tactics, here come the attempts to divide and conquer. Look at what happened in 2008 when black voter turnout helped elect Barack Obama. Suddenly, there was a massive increase in domestic surveillance, in monitoring of black political organizations, in tracking social media activity. They couldn't stop the election, but they sure could monitor everyone who made it possible. The real question isn't why they monitor us. The real question is, what happens when we stop being afraid of their monitoring and start using our power anyway? What happens when we realize that their fear of us is actually confirmation of our strength? See, here's what they don't want you to understand. Surveillance is an admission of weakness, not strength. You don't spend billions of dollars monitoring people you're not worried about. You don't dedicate entire government agencies to watching people who can't hurt you. The fact that they've maintained this level of surveillance for over a century tells you everything you need to know about who really has the power in this relationship. Every algorithm designed to track us, every database built to monitor us, every technology deployed to control us is a testament to our potential. They see something in black Americans that we sometimes don't even see in ourselves. They see that.
Tell me where she lied, yo. Tell me where she lied. AI or not, I do not give two rabbits nor no ducks. Tell me where she lied. But this video is not going to be popular. This conversation is not going to be had. That's sad to me. People are scared of this conversation. That is sad to me. I don't care whether you like me or not. I care that my kids and my grandchildren have a natural fight. And right now they won't, don't, and cannot have one. Ever. Project 2025, Project 30. You know these things are real. This is why I got on here. This is what excited me. This is what made me get up and say, you know what, look, when I was going through that, I can wait. Yeah, I put that on hold. Like, yeah, ASAP. I put that on hold. I swear to you, I tell you no lie. I put that on hold. I put it directly on hold. And I only put it on hold for one reason, one purpose only. Because I saw the importance to certain information and had to share it to you. I didn't even put my little skit up there in front of this. I just ran with this one. Because I want to bring you these things in a different flair, in a different way. It ain't really about the views to me. It's just putting the information up. Hopefully the right person will see it and begin the right conversation. Because these conversations need to be had. We are scared of these conversations for a reason, and they know this. Why? Because we are scared of what they will do to us. Unconsciously, we not understanding that that's exactly what that is. That's a fear. But then if you live in that fear, if you live in that box and you're scared to let go of this system, what else could it be? At some point, you got to recognize what doesn't work for you in your life and throw it away. So what? You can travel. So what? Your bank account, you're going to reward the house slave over the field slave any damn day. But that doesn't make you not a slave because you get to flush the toilet. That doesn't make you a slave because you get to cook master a meal every now and again.
Power to change everything, to challenge every assumption, to demand justice, not just for ourselves, but for everyone. The surveillance state exists because they know that when Black Americans organize, when we unite, when we focus our collective energy on change, we don't just ask for reforms, we transform entire systems. And that transformation threatens every power structure they've built their wealth and control on. Think about it. Every major advancement in American democracy has come through Black struggle. The end of slavery, civil rights, voting rights, rights, workers' rights, women's rights. We've been the catalyst for every expansion of freedom and democracy in this country. And every single time, they've responded with surveillance, intimidation, and violence. And let me tell you something else that's going to blow your mind. The international scope of this surveillance. They weren't just monitoring Black Americans domestically, they were tracking our connections globally. When civil rights leaders traveled to Africa, Asia, or Europe, the CIA was right there documenting every meeting, every conversation, every relationship. They were terrified that Black Americans would connect with other liberation movements around the world, that we'd realize our struggle was part of a global fight against white supremacy and colonialism. Malcolm X's trips to Africa and the Middle East, monitored. Martin Luther King's connections with anti-apartheid leaders, documented. Paul Robeson's international performances and political speeches. The State Department revoked his passport for 8 years just to keep him from spreading ideas about racial equality internationally. They understood something that many Black Americans are just now waking up to. Our struggle for freedom in America is connected to liberation movements everywhere. This is why they freaked out when the Black Panthers started building relationships with revolutionaries in Cuba, Algeria, Vietnam, and China. Suddenly, it wasn't just about civil rights in America anymore. It was about Black Americans understanding their place in a global context of resistance to oppression. That terrified them because it meant we might start thinking bigger than just integration into their system. But let's
Riddle me this. How did so few white people come to rule over so many people of hue? And when I say people of hue, I do mean Black people. However, if you have that thing called melanin, which Asian people got, Indian people got, Australian people got, Spanish people got, if you have any melanin in your body, that makes you one of us. They tell you this. So how so few white people come to rule over so many Black people if it ain't for the wars that they had? And if you look at the timeline, a lot of these wars coincide with the wars that went on here in America. The wars that were going on here in the United States. You know, it's come to my understanding Genghis Khan was a Black guy. I haven't really never seen it to date, but I know in that era, in that time frame where Genghis Khan walked that continent, the people of hue, the dark-skinned people that look like me, in other words, the Asiatic man, the true Asiatic man, thrived in Asia back then. I keep bringing this up. I keep saying this, hoping that you understand it, hoping that it'll hit home, hoping that, you know, we'll wake up. Because this
Let's talk about something that's happening right now in 2025 that people are sleeping on. Digital surveillance and artificial intelligence. These algorithms they're using to track us aren't neutral. They're programmed with the same biases that have always existed in American society, but now they're automated and operating at scale. Predictive policing software claims to be objective, but it's trained on decades of biased arrest data from over-policed Black communities. So the algorithm perpetuates the same discrimination, but now they can claim it's scientific and data-driven. Facial recognition technology has error rates that are 10 to 100 times higher for Black women than for white men, but police departments are still using it to identify suspects. Social media monitoring tools are specifically designed to flag keywords and phrases that are common in Black cultural expression. They're literally programming racism into machines and then using those machines to justify more surveillance and harassment. And here's what's really insidious. They're using our own creativity against us. Hip-hop lyrics are being used as evidence in court cases. Social media posts are being analyzed for gang affiliation based on nothing more than cultural references and slang. They're treating Black cultural expression as criminal activity and using it to justify surveillance and prosecution. The school-to-prison pipeline is now digitized too. They're using surveillance technology in schools that are predominantly Black, claiming it's for safety, but really it's training kids to accept constant monitoring as normal. Metal detectors, surveillance cameras, police officers in schools, digital monitoring of students' online activities, activity. They're literally conditioning the next generation to live under surveillance.
That's quite ironic when you go back and you look at some of these school shootings that they say were hoax.
Break down some numbers for you that should make everyone's blood boil. The federal government spends more on domestic surveillance in 1 year than many states spend on education. They've got fusion centers in 79 cities across America, and every single one of them has black community calls, text messages, and internet communications at rates. Corporate surveillance is part of this. Agencies and law enforcement.
Why?
Americans and selling it to government agencies and law enforcement.
Why do you think you say certain things around your cell phone, and then you say certain things around your cell phone, and then you pick your cell phone up and you see those things around your cell phone, and then you pick your cell phone up and you see those things are there? That's a form of entrapment. That's a form of enslavement. That's exactly what that is, because they're feeding your idea of choice. Meanwhile, they're not really giving you one, because they're not going to give you opposite of what you're saying. They're going to give you exactly what you're looking for. If that didn't make sense, let's start that one over, right? If I sit here and I say I want a cheeseburger, which I just said that, right? My phone will pick that up, and I'll have commercials of McDonald's and things like that all over my phone for the rest of the day. You know, anything that you speak of will show up on your phone for the rest of the day. That's because they're using your data against you, because they are using these things to further the chains around your neck.
Your shopping patterns, your location data, your social media activity, your search history, it's all being packaged and sold to people who want to track and control black communities. And when you try to opt out, when you try to protect your privacy, that's treated as suspicious behavior that warrants even more surveillance. The prison system is using surveillance technology to monitor not just incarcerated people, but their families and communities too. Phone calls are recorded, visits are monitored, mail is read, and all of that data is being used to build profiles on people who have never been convicted of any crime. They're treating entire families and neighborhoods as criminal networks based on nothing more than relationships and associations. But here's what really gets me. They're using surveillance to suppress economic development in black communities. Small businesses are being monitored for suspicious financial activity. Black-owned banks are subject to extra scrutiny. Community organizations trying to do economic development work are investigated for potential fraud. They're literally using surveillance to maintain economic inequality. And let's talk about environmental surveillance. They're monitoring black communities for illegal dumping and environmental violations, but they're not monitoring the corporations that are actually poisoning our neighborhoods. They'll spend millions tracking individuals who might be littering, but they won't investigate the chemical companies that are giving kids asthma and cancer. The surveillance state has also weaponized mental health. They're monitoring social media for signs of mental instability, but what they're really doing in relationships and associations.
Hold on. I rewind that for a reason, because I found that was a very heavy and important statement, and I needed to play it again just for my own ears. So I hope that you soak this one in, because I think this might have been the most important part of the whole video.
Here's what really gets me. They're using surveillance to suppress economic development in black communities. Small businesses are being monitored for suspicious financial activity. Black-owned banks are subject to extra scrutiny. Community organizations trying to do economic development work are investigated for potential fraud. They're literally using surveillance to maintain economic inequality. And let's talk about environmental surveillance. They're monitoring black communities for illegal dumping and environmental violations, but they're not monitoring the corporations that are actually poisoning our neighborhoods. They'll spend millions tracking individuals who might be littering, but they won't investigate the chemical companies that are giving kids asthma and cancer. The surveillance state has also weaponized mental health. They're monitoring social media for signs of mental instability.
I have cancer. That's one of the reasons why I'm sitting here not afraid to tell you this shit. I'm already, willing to be, if that's what it takes. If you look on my Facebook page, I said that. If the old are not willing to die, then how would a young live? How would a youth live? They can kill the words of a few hundred people, but they can't kill the words of a whole planet. That's where the division and dividing things have to go out the door. That's where we got to understand as people that they claim are race people, white, black, this, that. We have to understand we have roles. You know, just like in electricity, just like in the Indian and Stone story, the main thing in the Indian and Stone story is electricity. And the reason why electricity is the main thing is because to have electricity, you have to have a positive and a negative. In electricity, you have to have a positive and a negative, but the negative outweighs the positive. Excuse me for that. No, they cannot kill the information. You're absolutely right. They cannot kill the information. They're not supposed to kill the information. But this is why the information has to be shared. This is why the information has to become a conversation. Because they're killing the conversation. That's the next step to all this. Do you understand? That is the next step. What you can and can't learn, what you can and can't talk about. We too complacent, we too comfortable to let go of that which we think is best for us. And in reality, it's not what's best for us, it's what's best for the system. We have to take power of our own selves back. I mean, why else do they lie to you about who you truly are? And why is it that these things are continuous against you and I? Do you think it's some coincidence? Or you wanted them to think it don't exist and it ain't happening no more?
But what they're really doing is criminalizing trauma responses to systemic oppression. If you post about being tired of racism, if you express
Captain
anger
Kirk.
about police violence, if you talk about feeling hopeless about the system, that gets flagged as concerning behavior that might warrant intervention. They're even surveilling our religious practices. Mosques in black communities are heavily monitored. Churches that preach
You absolutely right, Diamond. You absolutely right. Mute our voices. If they keep you muted, they keep you docile. This is why they need the men to be women.
liberation theology are investigated. Community centers that host political discussions are infiltrated. They're treating spiritual and community gathering as potential terrorist activity because they understand that faith and community are sources of strength and resistance. Now, here's the part that should terrify everyone. All of this surveillance infrastructure they've built to monitor Black Americans is being expanded to monitor everyone. The techniques they perfected on us over the past century are now being used on all.
Let's go back. I said that, and I'm gonna say it again. That's your German poem. First they came and got the Jews, and I did not speak.
All Americans. Mass surveillance, predictive policing, social media monitoring, financial tracking, it's all becoming normalized.
That's the point in the war. The Willie Lynch letter explained that I just did. Everything they done to my kind, they're turning around and they're using it against the rest of society. But you're too blind, you're too egotistic, you're too selfish to really take time out to understand what really plagues us all.
because they tested it on black communities first. But
Right.
here's what they didn't count on. We're getting smarter too. Young black activists are using encryption, they're building alternative communication networks, they're creating independent media platforms, they're developing economic systems that operate outside traditional banking. Every surveillance technique they develop, we're developing countermeasures.
Here's the one thing this video is not going to tell you. They know you're going to do this. They know that you're going to come back to great elevation. They know that you're going to come back to great civilization. They know that you're going to come back to great understandings of life. But they can't afford for you to do that because then their means of control collapses and burns overnight. Why do you think knowing if you're Indian or not is so important? I've been going on these people's things asking them, okay, now that you understand you're an Indian, what do you do with it? But they don't have a clue. That's what I am trying to give you, the clue on why they keeping you from this information. So if you see me on here, if you hear me having these conversations, if you hear me or you see that I'm on live, do not just write me off because you don't like that I'm emotionally speaking from, you know what I'm saying, a place of hyperness. I'm supposed to be hype. I'm an Indian. When we get emotional, there's one or two things we doing. We're either expressing the energy amongst the land or we at war. And guess what we are?
And that's what keeps them up at night. Because despite a century of surveillance, despite all the resources they've dedicated to monitoring and controlling Black Americans, we keep organizing, we keep resisting, we keep building, we keep creating, we keep inspiring. Every generation finds new ways to fight for freedom, and every generation pushes this country closer to actually living up to its stated ideals. The surveillance state exists because they know our history, they know our potential, and they know that when Black Americans organize effectively, we change everything. We ended slavery, we dismantled legal segregation, we expanded voting rights, we transformed American culture, we influenced global politics. 14% of the population with that kind of impact, of course they're scared. So the next time someone asks why they monitor us so heavily, why they dedicate so many resources to watching such a small percentage of the population, you tell them because they know what we're capable of, even when we forget it ourselves. The surveillance isn't about what we've done, it's about what they know we can do. And that, my friends, should tell you everything you need to know about where the real power lies. The very existence of this surveillance state is proof that they see in us something we need to see in ourselves. The power to transform not just America, but the world.
You are greatness. You are beautiful people. Right. I'm a Cherokee Indian too. We are great and powerful people. And they cannot allow you to know that. That's why they wanted you to think that you were African American. Because the true God is known to the Indian of America. They cannot let you know this. They can't. They cannot let you, they can't let you think outside the box. They can't let you teach your history, your true history, to your offspring. And imagine teaching your children what it means to be an Indian. Not just that you're an Indian. Believe me. That's nothing. That's just a word. But being able to teach them why it's important to embrace being an Indian. Why it's important to embrace being an Indian. Let's go over partially what that is. The Mayan was one of the greatest civilizations that ever walked the planet. They were North American Indian who existed up until the 1800s. What comes after 1819? So you mean to tell me we only 100 years removed of understanding who the fuck God truly is? Let me say that without the emotional strain to it. We're only 100 years removed from understanding exactly who God truly is. We're only 100 years removed from understanding why they build mounds and pyramids. In fact, this technology, the cell phone, the man that walked on the moon, right, had a cell phone. We've come to that understanding. How important is that? Well, that says if they had the cell phone in the early 1900s, would it be safe to say that they didn't build nothing in those years of war? So would it be safe to say that it's possible that the cell phone could have been around in the 1800s, in the 1700s? Of course it is. When you deal with people that is stealing everything from you, when you dealing with people that take everything from you, when you dealing with people that take your identity and sell it to the rest of the world. Because if that's what's not going on here, somebody please explain to me in the chat what is. I only come to give you truth. I didn't come to give you my idealisms. I didn't come to indoctrinate you with the things I think every day. No, I come to give you something that I really have to put my own bias feelings to the side for. To even tell the story, I had to say to myself, am I willing to tell this story, yo? Because there's something to be had in this story if it takes flight. And believe, if this takes flight with the right person or people, lives will be taken. You have to admit that that's the truth. And that's the truth that many people are willing to wake up to. But guess what? I told you, the government did this to me. So let me show you what they did to me. They didn't put me to sleep. They woke up the animal. They gave me cancer in the food that I'd eat. They got you thinking, Yaki Awaken and all these people, they're great people. Believe me, they're great people. But understanding the Indian, you know, the Indian eats according to his region. So yes, the Indian ate meat. However, you got to understand at the time the Indian walked America, walked Asia, walked India, walked Africa, how electrical the planet was. That's the difference. If you listen to the Indians say when the white man came to America, we could drink from our rivers and lakes. That means what? They tell you you can't eat from your rivers and lakes today because of feces. You mean to tell me in the 18s and the 1700s, the fish didn't poop? No, that tells you that the design of the animal was meant for you to consume. That means the planet was of you and you are of the planet. So how do you come back to that? You can only come back to that by embracing who you truly are. Right. That's why they poison you. That is exactly why they poison you. This is why I sit here with cancer. Because it keeps you from being electrical. Because it keeps you from tapping into your ancestral lineage. I don't want people to take me out of text because I'll say it a lot. I don't care if you take this information. Believe me, as emotional as I am, I'm gonna tell you, I spent a lifetime researching this information. Because as a young black kid, grew up without parents, without any male structure. As a young black boy growing up since I've been 13 on my own. And I used to tell this to my kids, man. I never really understood how much of a design that truly was. That was never my choice to be a thug, never. And I'm telling you, wholeheartedly, a real nigga from the streets will tell you, ain't nothing I really wanted to do. I just did it because that's what I knew. That's what I was taught. How do you defeat that if you don't look at its design? You can't. We're going to continue to lose children after children after children after children. Generation after generation after generation. Until the people have to beg the government to come and govern over us because we have lost all control, and that is where we're at. That is what they're pushing you to. If you are paying attention, that is why they are using the LGBTQ people, and that ain't really even who I'm talking about. Right now. Because they're the next line of making them the police. And once they become the police, that rewrites the whole Constitution. No, I'm not trying to sell you fear. No, I'm not trying to sell you a heart attack. No, I'm not trying to sell you, listen, don't go vote. What I am trying to tell you is whatever truth you got within you, there's more to add to it. And if you are a person like me that really wants to see the end of gun violence in our communities, then you are willing to say and do whatever it takes to get there. And that's all I'm showing you, what it takes to get there. I don't care if you agree with me, because I know 90% of the people are going to scroll through this. That's by design. That's why they pay you more for shorts than they do for hour-long videos, when it only takes you 5 minutes to figure out a short. There's no real effort there. But that's the point, to keep you unfocused, to keep you distracted. To keep you pushed in a corner. I done said it a lot since I've been on here, yo. I done said it, man. My only hope is I really hope people write me off because they don't really like the way I talk or understand the way I talk. It's not about me. It's about the message. I don't care, white, black, or indifferent. I don't care. What affects one affects us all. Why do you think the Indian used the eagle? It is not the most fierce bird. Why do you think America followed suit with what America is already represented by? The eagle. Because that's what the feathers are for. Around the Indian's head. Every indigenous people, every indigenous group uses their own understanding of nature. The American Indian used the eagle. Let's start with why they chose it for your national bird. Because it's something you already gonna be drawn to. It's something your DNA is screaming to accept. I'm not trying to put nothing in your head but how to save the youth. And believe me, man, the powers that be build private prisons. They're not looking for those answers, and they're not going to let them thrive. They know that it's coming. This is why all these little side groups, the Klan, Antifa, they see if they don't get you to the point they need you to by this date this year, they're gonna lose. It ain't about them not existing in 40 to 50 years. That's not what it's about to them. It's about them not being in power. They distract you. They get you thinking it's one thing when really, excuse me, it's another. So, I love to give a final thought before I wrap things up, man, because I've been on here too long. I've been on here longer than I wanted to be. I was hoping to be on here for like 40 minutes, but I already see that's over with. However, I'm quite cool with it, man, because I just don't know, man. I can't make you understand. But then again, if you are a person that's watching this, that means you have already had your ideas of life summed up in a whole. The only question is your truth good enough to teach the youth? Remember, I'm your host, Darnell Henderson. Until then, back at you.